Hello, I'm DK Roster. Welcome to the TTT News Special. Now, as you can see from the background, this is a special edition where we make the time to highlight individuals who have taken the Caraman Men's Pledge. And right now, we have none other than our line minister, Minister of Communications, and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Symon de Nobriga. So, welcome, Minister. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to it. And as we intend to focus a lot more on the Men's Pledge and less on policy decisions of the government, I want to say condolences on the passing of your ministerial colleague, Franklin Can, and giving you the opportunity if there's anything you would like to say about him at this time.
First of all, DK, thanks a lot for having me on. I think that what you are doing here and highlighting the Army Caraman Pledge is extremely important, but I'm also definitely going to take the opportunity to speak about Mr. Khan. There is very little I can say that has not been said before, except that the measure of a man to me is his authenticity. The measure of any person to me is their authenticity. And I think if it was one thing that defined Frankie was that he was unapologetically authentic. I think that anybody who would have known him was better off for it. And I think that this country will be less for his passing. I want to extend my condolences to his family, his friends, his loved ones. I can only imagine the impact that his death will have on them. Frankie is that easy smile, his institutional knowledge, his willingness to impart information. I'm always impressed with people who are as bright as Frankie was, who never make you feel as if they're trying to show you how bright they are. But you were always left more knowledgeable for every interaction that you had with him. So he will be missed.
All right, and we want to thank you for that. And we continue the conversation speaking about the Men's Pledge. And
I'm not hearing you, DK.
And we continue the conversation about the Men's Pledge, and we want to start off by getting your rationale behind taking the pledge.
I don't know a rationale. There's some things that just should be done. You know, I don't want to make this seem as if you're overthinking it. I think that as men, first we have to acknowledge that gender-based violence, for the most part, is a male problem. And as men, we need to keep ourselves accountable and keep other men accountable. I may not be in my own mind contributing to the issue, but I will tell you that in taking the pledge and reading the pledge, I do see where even I can improve my own thinking, my own approach, my own day-to-day interactions. A big thing about this is that I have been lucky in my life that I have been surrounded by strong women, and most of who I am, I think, has been formed by my relationships with them. My mother, the women that I have had relationships with, women who are now my very, very good friends. And most recently, my 14-year-old daughter, who's a revelation every day. And to be very honest, now we are starting to have those conversations where I realize that I have to make the topics that are sort of encompassed by this pledge. I have to make these topics front of mind in my conversations with her, in my conversations with her friends when I have them, and in conversations with my 10-year-old son as I prepare him to be the best man that he can be.
Now, Minister, you say it's a no-brainer, but at the same time, sometimes the context of the fact that you are in a public area of life, you're under the glare of public scrutiny, you may think twice about saying, I wonder if I want to affix my name to this. Did that pop up in your mind at all? And if so, how did you deal with it?
No, it never did. When my initial conversation around this would have been with your CEO, who had told me that this was something that TTT was doing. The men of TTT were coming together. I had seen it before, but it's only when CEO Roberts would have spoken to me about it in one of our meetings that I went it and I looked at it. And I think that there are some decisions that you take as a person that your public persona, it doesn't come into play. And if it does, I think that because I'm a public person, it makes it even more important that I do affix myself to the spirit of this pledge, and to the things that we are asking men to do and to be.
Now, when you speak about the importance, Carriman speaks of addressing violence like this in almost a triangle in terms of violence against women, violence against other men, and violence against ourselves as men. But I'm wondering, what's your take on the importance of having men in public areas of life place that responsibility on themselves? Because you said gender-based violence, for the most part, is a male problem. So you have perpetrators, and this is something that we want to look at. But it's so easy to point that finger as opposed to saying, what can I do differently? How would you address something like that? And we can start from personal, moving outward.
That's a very far-reaching question. Yes, when I say I do not think that it's wrong to say that this is a male problem. And I think that the facts bear out in that. But yes, before any government policy becomes part of the conversation, before any societal approach becomes part of the conversation, there must be a level of personal responsibility. And I think that firstly, we as men need to hold ourselves accountable. We need to address and have real conversations around our own issues of expressing vulnerability, of real issues of male depression, real issues of anxiety, and the way that the societal pressures on a man, and very often the way that most of us as men were brought up to understand what masculinity is and how that should manifest itself, both in the way that you think and the way that you speak, but more importantly, the way that you express emotion. I think that those conversations need to be had. People need to be honest about it, and we need to understand that it is in those conversations, those open, honest conversations where we hold ourselves accountable, that the solution really begins.
And I want to jump up in your business a little bit, Minister. Do you find it a little harder to have those spaces where you're able to be vulnerable, to articulate some of those vulnerabilities? And this is one as an individual, but two, one who is so public now, in terms of you are there, you're part of the administration, and people see you, they look at you, and they, without even meeting you, develop their own idea of what you are, what you're about.
So bias is a reality. People will automatically ascribe, I suppose, certain attributes to any person based on their own experiences. But knowing that it is important, and that importance outweighs the uncomfortable nature of it, and it can be uncomfortable, but that importance to address these things outweighs any discomfort that I might have. And as I said, I think that my role as a member of parliament, as a minister in government, as a person in public life, puts me in a place where I need to have these conversations, firstly with myself, And then secondly, to lead by example in addressing these things and saying that as men, it is fine to express moments of self-doubt. It is fine to express vulnerability. It is fine to admit to depression and to anxiety. And in doing those things, what happens is it moves from a negative physical response or a negative response that may be physical or verbal to a positive response that is based on wanting to be better, wanting to come out of that comfort zone that we find ourselves in as men that very often can be toxic, and trying to grow as men. And it's important that we do it because we are also the examples as fathers and as brothers and as uncles and as leaders. We are also examples to the next generation. So I'm having these conversations daily with my son. I'm having these conversations with my son in front of my daughter whenever I can. I'm asking her to speak to him about her own experiences, good and bad, obviously in a responsible way. But it is important that I start having those conversations with him because he needs to be part of a future where there's a level playing field. He needs to be part of a future where his sister doesn't need to concern herself with what does she need to do to feel safe. She should just feel safe.
And this is the point, and this is the point where we take a short break. We want to continue the conversation, but we do so when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are speaking with Minister Symon de Nobriga about the men's pledge. And Minister, just before we took that break, you're saying that we as men and different generations should be having conversations to try to create those steps towards the reality that we want to see. But even before we get back into that, though, you said you looked through the pledge before signing on to it, and it was a no-brainer to do so. But what is the thing, or is there a specific point in this pledge that really resonated with you?
So, DK, the truth is that the pledge has the eight points, and there are eight tasks that we give ourselves. Any one of them can be accepted to be the most important part. I think, though, that firstly, for me, valuing what women say is a critical thing, and also spreading the word. It is important that women's opinions are not dismissed simply because they come from a place of being spoken by a woman. It is important to understand that as we try to improve our own selves, that we do listen to their experiences. And again, from a personal place, in having these conversations, and of course, this pledge is also, and this conversation is also against the backdrop of so many unfortunate and horrific, unfortunately is such an understatement, but horrific instances of violence against women, young and old, in this country in recent times. And my own conversations, again, I say with my 14-year-old daughter, who shared with me stories of her own experiences, stories of her friends that would have told her, because of course, having put myself into a space where I am in the public eye, and having put myself into a space where these conversations will be had and I will be part of it, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. I wanted to get an idea from her, and it is unsettling as a father to know the sort of things that my daughter would have gone through. But she's not the only one. I have had conversations with female co-workers, with my past colleagues in council. I've had conversations with members of parliament. I have conversations with friends, female friends this is throughout the past 20, 30 years. And it is important, one, to listen to the experiences of women, to understand the world from a female perspective. It is important to allow those experiences to also form and shape your own approach to life and your own way of living and the way that you address issues going forward. We all have mothers and sisters and daughters, and we have to be cognizant of their own experiences, good and bad, in the world. And then further to that, having done that, it is important that we go out and talk to other men about it and say that this is something that should be done. This is the right way to live, and this is the right way to act. And so spreading the word and valuing what women have to say and their contributions in general are the two, I would say, are the most salient points to me.
And now, if we ask on one end of the spectrum, we need to go to the other. And I appreciate the fact that you're saying that you start with these conversations, you start having them with yourself, and then you move a little out in concentric circles. But in this 3 minutes, because one of the things I want to ask, though, is you did say that there's some that you say, okay, well, I can do a little better. So is there one that you say, all right, you see, this one may be a little challenging, or this one, I see where I need to try to up my game?
I think that if I had to say from reading the pledge, I can see that as men, a lot of the things that we considered appropriate under in the spirit of fun, appropriate in the spirit of I just saying that I don't really mean that really highly inappropriate. And I think that more than anything is one thing that transcends a lot of those things, because by acknowledging the way that you speak to and about women, to their face and when they're not around, helps to propagate this sort of lack of respect and an almost dismissive lack of respect that has sort of seeped into male culture in this country. So if I had to say there was anything, there would be that I could see in my own past times where I would have contributed to that, and it is now front of mind for me.
And I remember having a conversation with someone, and they were saying sometimes someone may not speak up because they remember, okay, well, I used to do that too, or I have some of those skeletons in my closet. But I really appreciate you saying, okay, well, this is something that I would have been participating in, but now I keep it in mind in how I move forward, because when you know better, you do better. But we want to thank you for making the time to be part of this, also reminding you that if you want to sign the Men's Pledge, you can go on to www.carryman.org. And Minister, once again, we want to thank you. And on behalf of the entire news team, we want to thank you for being a part of this one. I'm DK Rasta. Thank you for joining.